Ngwanani Mwalelepo Vukenjani Kreklas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. These are some of the stories that we're looking at on the 11th of August. South African Special Forces members charged over top Hawks detectives' murder. Zimbabwe sets $300 million ceiling on gold buying incentive scheme. Zambians prepare to choose between continuity and change. Malawi make history with first Women's World Cup qualification. And Nairobi enters the race to host the 2029 World Athletics Championships. Talent Gore, our correspondent in Harare, Zimbabwe, will also join us to deliver the Zimbabwe report right here on DSTV 285, GOTV 25, 1up2.com, Network Media Hub, and NTVAFRIKA.MY.NA. This is Africa Good Morning. My name is Ashwin Berry. Top stories shortly.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises, from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us. Something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative sport tourism.
Let's get into our top stories. 7 members of South Africa's Special Forces and 1 military police officer have been charged with murdering respected Hawks detective Lieutenant Colonel Frans Mathipa in August 2023, and all deny the charges. Mathipa was investigating allegations that Special Forces abducted and killed Ethiopian Abdella Abagdiga and his bodyguard Kadir Obetsese in December 2022. Police documents shared with the BBC show a vehicle that trailed Mathipa before he was shot was registered to Peters Communications Trust, described as the Special Forces front company, while tracking data placed it at the shooting scene. Documents also identify Maj Sunnyboy Wambi as an occupant and link him to the Mall of Africa where Abadiga was last seen. Mathipa had subpoenaed Special Forces for details of an alleged training exercise and told Commanding Officer Brig Paulina Sechobela he feared being killed. 12 military members have been arrested on various charges involving the cases. 6 later had bail revoked, but 3, including Wambi, have not surrendered. The military has refused to hand them over. 3 years after Mathipa's killing. No trial date has been set. Now, Zimbabwe will cap government spending on its gold buying incentive scheme at $300 million, and this is through to the end of 2026, and review the program while preparing for the 2027 national budget. Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube and Central Bank Governor John Mashayanyu told the International Monetary Fund. We're going to take a quick break and return with more news.
AFRIKA is 'n echt Namibiese inisiatief. Ons reis op die hartklop van Afrika en vertel stories van mense en hulle dorpe op verskeie platforms insluitende televisie en sosiale media. Dit is joune, syne, julle en ook almal van hulle aan die ander kant van ons grense sinne. En dit maak AFRIKA 'n lekker ding. Kyk AFRIKA maande om 18:30 op NTV, 1of2.com as ook op netwerk Media Hub en NTV Afrikaans se YouTube kanale. Volg ons op Facebook of besoek ons webwerf by AFRIKA.com.
Do you like traveling?
Do you like to experience new places?
Well, then you should tune into On the Rock, where we explore enjoy establishments all over Namibia and South Africa. Great food, great fun, and so much more. So be sure to mark your calendar as we explore the beautiful landscapes of Namibia at the various enjoy establishments.
And where we also get to go on game drives, different activities, and meet the awesome staff of the different establishments.
We will see you there. Watch On the Rocks every Monday at 9 p.m. on DSTV channel 285 and GOTV channel 25.
All right, we were talking about Zimbabwe capping its government spending on its gold buying incentive scheme at $300 million through the end of 2026, and they are ready to review the program while preparing the 2027 national budget. Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube and Central Bank Governor John Mushayavanu told the International Monetary Fund that the limit is intended to reduce fiscal risks arising from changes in gold prices and deliveries. Authorities will assess whether the program remains financially sustainable and whether its scope should be adjusted. Zambia will be voting on Thursday in a presidential election with up to 8.7 million voters deciding whether incumbent Hakainde Hichilema receives another term or opposition challenger Brian Mundubile takes power. Hichilema, leader of the United Party for National Development, won the presidency in 2021 on his sixth attempt after Zambia entered sovereign default under late President Edgar Lungu. His government has secured a debt restructuring agreement, restored an international monetary fund program, and returned the economy to growth. Now, Brian Mundubile is the challenger who is part of the Tonse Alliance, which splintered and still finds its source in the PF government of former President Edgar Lungu. Now, Mike Sichula had compiled a descriptive and comprehensive update with regards to the election atmosphere in Zambia.
Thank you very much for having me. Yes, indeed, the Zambian people will be going to the polls on the 13th of August to elect a new president or give President Hakainde Hichilema another 5 years to rule Zambia. A brief background to this election. President Hakainde Hichilema is coming up against 12 presidential candidates. Initially, there were supposed to be 13 presidential candidates challenging the incumbent, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, but one of the presidential candidates, Mr. Xavier Chungu, has since withdrawn from the race because he was arrested by the Zambia police in connection with seditious practices and other offenses that the Zambia police have slapped on him. Then the 2026 elections are going to see 8.7 million Zambians elect 226 members of parliament, which is a jump from 156 members of parliament because the constitution was amended. Then there will also be 40 proportional representative of members of parliament, and from this 40 there will be 20 women, then 15 youths, and 5 seats have been reserved for persons with disabilities. In terms of the campaign promises, the incumbent President Hakainde Hichilema is promising a continuity of the policies that his administration has been implementing in the last 5 years. And these include the provision of free education, which has seen close to over 2 million children going back to school because the government has subsidized the provision of education, and on top of that, the government is providing free meals. Then some of the new promises that the current administration is making include increased maize production, investing in alternative sources of energy, as well as economic transformation. That is what the current administration is promising. On the other hand, from the 12 presidential candidates, Mr. Brian Mundubire of the NRPUP has emerged to be a front runner as an opposition leader, and he has so far been to 9 provinces. He has held more than 60 rallies along the way. What is he promising? He is promising to come and repeal what he calls suppressive laws, and this includes the implementation of cybersecurity laws, which according to him and his running mate, Mr. Makebi Zuru, he says the implementation of the cybersecurity laws have suppressed Zambians because Zambians cannot freely speak. On the agriculture sector,
all right, for that full update, do check out our Zambia election special, which went up on Second Take on Sunday at 9 p.m. But you can still find it on YouTube as well as on NTV Africa. Remember that Africa is spelled with a K. NTVAFRIKA.MY.NA. Go to Second Take, click the latest episode, and find out everything happening with regards to the Zambia election in a special episode brought to you by our correspondent Mike Sichula in Lusaka and myself. Now we swing over to Zambia's neighbor, Malawi. Malawi secured their first place at the Women's World Cup, and this was after coming from behind to defeat Ghana 2-1 in Sunday's last Women's Africa Cup of Nations quarterfinal in Rabat. English-born striker Chantal Boye-Hoka gave Ghana the lead in the 7th minute before Temwa Chawinga equalized for Malawi in the 12th minute. Now this is a huge feat for Malawi as they look forward to making history led by the Chawinga sisters. Staying with sport, Nairobi has formally submitted its bid to host the 2029 World Athletics Championships, seeking to become the first African city to stage the sport's flagship event. The Kenyan capital will compete against London, Rome, and Munich for the hosting rights. Kenya's government has committed its full backing to Nairobi's bid, including the infrastructure, security, and organizational support required to host the championships. Well, after Botswana managed to host the World Athletics Relays this year, we certainly wish our Kenyan brothers and sisters all the best in this bid. This is Still Africa. Good morning. After the break, talent Gore joins us to deliver the Zimbabwe report. We're going to get straight into the stories with Talent Gore. Talent, apparently Zimbabwe's Defense Minister Opa Mchinguri could be facing 6 months in jail.
Zimbabwe's Defense Minister Opa Mchinguri risks a 6-month jail term after allegedly defying a High Court order to pay $25,000 in compensation to a victim of the army's deadly August 2018 crackdown. Mchinguri consented in July 2025 to compensate Zakeo Mutimutema, a former ZCTU employee who sued her alongside Home Affairs Minister Kazembe and Police Commissioner General Stephen Mutamba. The claim arose from injuries he suffered when soldiers opened fire to protest over alleged electoral irregularities on August 1, 2018. Mutimutema was inside his office at Gore House in Harare when a stray bullet shattered windows, sending glass fragments into his eyes. He sustained serious injuries and partially lost his eyesight. The labor law specialist later underwent 3 unsuccessful surgeries to remove the embedded glass. Represented by Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights lawyer Obey Shaiba, Mutimutema has now approached the High Court seeking to have Mchinguri declared in contempt of court for failing to pay to compensate the victims, for failing to compensate the victims. He wants her committed to prison for 6 months, with the sentence wholly suspended on condition that she pays the amount within 7 days. In his application, Mutimutema argues that the minister has willfully disobeyed a lawful order and ignored repeated demands for payment. Conduct, he says, undermines the authority of the court. A commission of inquiry led by former South African President Kgalema Motlate, appointed by President Emmerson Mnangagwa to investigate the post-election violence, recommended compensation for victims and prosecution of those responsible after at least 6 people were killed by soldiers. To date, no victims or their families are known to have been compensated, and no perpetrators have been prosecuted.
All right, Talent. Now, in your next story, the European Union has committed $345,000. This is to assist Zimbabwe's response to the cholera outbreak, as well as the returning crisis.
And now, in my other story, the European Union has committed $345,000 United States in emergency humanitarian funding to help Zimbabwe combat a worsening cholera outbreak, while supporting thousands of citizens returning from South Africa following recent violent targeting foreign nationals. The 6-month intervention, implemented through the Zimbabwe Red Cross Society in partnership with the government, the International Federation of Red Cross, and the Red Crescent Societies, United Nations agencies, and other humanitarian organizations, will provide life-saving assistance to vulnerable communities affected by the twin crisis. According to Peter Biro, Regional Information Officer for the Great Lakes, East and Southern Africa at the European Civil Protection and Humanitarian Aid Organization, the funding is aimed at strengthening Zimbabwe's response to both the expanding cholera outbreak and the growing influx of returnees. The EU said more than 5,000 vulnerable returnees will receive emergency assistance after nearly 110,000 Zimbabweans crossed back into the country between April and July 2026, placing significant pressure on reception facilities at the Beitbridge border post. Many returnees are spending nights at the Beitbridge Transit Center while waiting for transport to their home areas, exposing them to harsh winter conditions, overcrowding, and inadequate shelter. The program will provide emergency accommodation, food, blankets, safe drinking water, healthcare, hygiene supplies, and other essential relief items. It also includes psychosocial support, protection services, and restoring family links programs to reunite families which were separated during the migration. Women, children, older persons, and people living with disabilities have been identified as priority beneficiaries. Women and girls, who account for an estimated 65% of returning migrants, will receive targeted protection, health, and dignity support, and about 88,200 people are expected to benefit from cholera prevention and response activities, including volunteer training, enhanced disease surveillance, early ease detection and referrals, hygiene promotion, household water treatment, and rapid community response measures. Zimbabwe has endured recurrent cholera outbreaks for more than 2 decades, highlighting persistent deficiencies in water infrastructure, sanitation systems, and public health services.
All right, we're going to go ahead and say goodbye from studio right here on DSTV 285, GOTV 25, 1up2.com, and Network Media Hub at NTVAFRIKA.MY.NA. Tomorrow we return with news from Africa as well as the Botswana report. But talent, do sign us off as you talk about Zimbabwe's 46th Heroes Day celebrations, which were held under the theme, Lest We Forget.
And in my last story, thousands of Zimbabweans yesterday turned out at the National Heroes Acre in Harare to commemorate Heroes Day, transforming the national shrine into a sea of color, music, and patriotic celebration. The National Heroes Day is celebrated each and every year on the 10th of August in Zimbabwe, and this is a time where Zimbabweans honor the gallant sons and daughters whose sacrifices paved the way for the country's independence as the nation marks Heroes Day yesterday. And also the commemoration provide an opportunity for Zimbabweans to reflect on the courage, resilience, and sacrifices of those who participated in the liberation struggle. The main commemorations were held at the National Heroes Acre in Harare, with similar events taking place at a provincial and other national shrines across the country. Heroes Day remains an important fixture as a reminder of the price paid for the independence and the responsibility of present and future generations to preserve the country's heritage. As Zimbabwe remembers its heroes, the occasion also calls on citizens to honor their legacy through unity, patriotism, and commitment to the country's development. And also today, which is Tuesday the 11th, Zimbabwe is also commemorating the Defense Forces Day. So there are going to be similar celebrations at the national stadium, or rather at the Rufaro Stadium, where thousands of Zimbabweans are going to go to those places and witness the defense forces participate in different things, and also the Air Force will be doing their wonders, the defense forces, the police, everyone will be participating. So Zimbabweans, they get to go there and witness the kind of work that the defense forces does in trying to protect the country. And also this is where President Emerson Mnangagwa also inspect the guard of honor before the proceedings start. There will be lots of entertainment. So the 10th, which is the Heroes Day, and the 11th, which is the Defense Forces, usually they go hand in hand. Yesterday was Heroes Day, and today is Defense Forces Day, which is a public holiday. It is a public holiday in Zimbabwe, and people also get to appreciate the kind of work that the Defense Forces does in Zimbabwe. So from me, that's all in those stories, and we really appreciate what the Defense Forces does to protect the citizens of Zimbabwe. And also we commemorate and we remember our fallen heroes who died during the liberation struggle to bring about independence to Zimbabwe.